welcome back to my channel. This is Robin. I garden in Zone 6 in Northwest Connecticut. I thought I would take you on a tour today around the garden to see what's happening. And let me tell you, not much. We had snow, sleet 2 days ago. Today it's 70 degrees. What the heck is going on this spring? So even though there's really nothing blooming, I thought I would try to walk you around and let you see what we've been up to. We've gotten compost down in almost all the beds. We still have beds that need to be cleaned. We're still working on drainage in our yard. We're putting in some new drains, you can see here. But we've gotten most of the perennials cut down at this point. And I've got to say, if you haven't cut your perennials down, you really need to do it now, because you can see things are seriously growing. Here's an example. Sedum is definitely up, so if you haven't cut yours back, cut it back now. Same with the grasses, are all starting to grow. Let's take a walk around. You can see our wisteria that we cut down a few weeks ago is still looking okay. I don't see any growth on it yet, but fingers crossed. We'll keep our fingers crossed, literally. Hydrangeas, I've cut back the roses, the catalpa tree, all the hydrangeas you can see here. Whoops. You can see here, see we've got some new growth coming in right here. So it's time. If you haven't cut your, let's see if we can get that a little bit better in focus. If you haven't cut your hydrangeas back, if you need to, don't cut them back if you don't need to.
The reason I'm cutting back this panicle hydrangea, this is Pink Diamond, is because it's just getting too big for where I have it. Panicle hydrangeas, this cone shape, you can actually cut now because they bloom on new wood, just like the arborescens variety, like Annabelle, the big mop heads that you see. Those also bloom on new wood, so they can be trimmed if necessary at this time of the year. Now, the macrophylla types, they cannot be cut now. Those bloom on old wood. So if you cut those now, you're going to be cutting off all your blooms. The same with the oak leaf hydrangeas. This one, it happens to be bloom struck. But if you don't know which one you have, maybe take a cutting and go to a garden center.
And same thing, I've cut my roses back. So you can see this bed has not been cleaned up. The grasses have been cut down, but really not cleaned up. I've started to get some support plant hoops in place for the different plants that are pretty tall. Some of my junipers look like they've kind of the worse for wear this winter. I'm not kind of sure what's happened here. So taking a walk back here, let's go check out, ooh, Viburnum Mariesi. This is, oh God, so beautiful. It'll be all white and it bloom very soon. Another bed that's not cleaned up, and another bed that's not cleaned up. So making our way back to one of the new beds that we've been talking about for the last couple episodes. So I've moved all my winter sowing projects back here, getting ready to put ranunculus in the troughs. And some of my, I don't have a ton of growth to show you in the winter sowing containers, but I do have some. But they're really small. When they're a little bigger, I'll show them to you. My husband has installed, even though we do have irrigation, we have hose setups all around, just like Laura from Garden Answer always says, there's always something that needs to be hand watered. We also have some setups for voles. Truthfully, I don't know how well they work. I have a lot of trouble with voles here and a lot of trouble with rabbits. So this bed over here, as I mentioned once before, we burned this up. I had to transplant those spireas because they were not doing well where they were, and I wanted to change things up. That's one of the things I really want to talk about for a minute. don't be afraid to change things in your garden. Just because something has been in one place, maybe you want to change something. Maybe you want to change that, try a new perennial, or do a new set of annuals in a bed. I have some roses that are doing terrible, and I'm really starting to think about what should I do with them. So just be open and flexible. So here, my catalpa tree, I went in and I tried to, hopefully I got most of them, I tried to cut the crossing branches out. This tree really needed to be opened up. It's really beautiful. I can't wait to show it to you. The alliums, like I said, we've had some really crazy weather here in Connecticut, so not much is happening with the alliums, and I'm not sure where most of mine are. I think I might have lost some. We've had a lot of issues with water. So I've mentioned to you, this is bed number 2, and one of the things that we've been working on before we can get dirt down and compost in this bed is we're trying to address drainage yet again. So my husband has put in a drain here to try and take water that's coming straight down here. You can see this lovely mess from the storm we had the other night. And we're going to try and channel it across the bed here into the drainage that we have running underneath that large path. So that's what's happening in the backyard. Shortly, we'll start seeing the viburnums again across the way back. Will all be white. These hawthorns will be beautiful white flowers, and this Japanese maple is starting to show some signs of life. Can't wait. This is Kono no Ito, and it's really a pretty Japanese maple. A year or so ago, we made this new bed with this small river birch, Little King, I believe it's called. I have a Philadelphus right over here. It'll have really beautiful smelling white flowers on it. Have a hydrangea and a rose, and then just some miscellaneous plants in there. But this area of our yard, I don't think we ever walked around on this side, is relatively steep, and it's really hard to move a mower up and down. So we are hoping at some point that we can actually get some nice big, just like on the other side, some big stone steps going down here, but stone is not cheap. And this is bed number 1 that I've spoken about a few times. And this bed, it just needs to get the rocks taken out of it. And I've been pulling some of the coneflowers that were in here, pulling them out. They're in my hoop house right now, so I can transplant them, but get those things out of the way. So hopefully there's not too much wind today, because it's always windy here where I live. So I'm trying not to face the wind today, and I finally got a microphone. So I want you to see the Camasias are really coming up now. Same with the daffodils, but really nothing is blooming here at my house. Got lots of growth on my crabapple. So the other day I planted this bare root rose, and it's got some nice buds coming out. So it's happy, and hopefully it'll really fill up this container. In this container I have an Enchanthus, and again the buds are starting to swell, which is really nice. And I really thought I would keep this in a container versus planting it in the landscape. This is a big container. I usually put tomatoes in it, but this year I'm going to put tomatoes in that trough. So we finally got rid of all the compost that was in our driveway. And again, you can see we've got tulips and fritillaria and muscari all coming up, along with lots of daffodils. So the other day I planted a new peony called Cora Louise. I would have taken you along, but it was raining when I did it. And I do want to talk to you a little bit more about planting peonies, so I will do that off here. So I'm going to move this Chamaecyparis
forward a little bit. It's kind of falling down the back of this bed. We're going to put some supports to try to brace the back of this because it's on a hill. We got a lot of water. So I've got my hole dug. I've got my Biotone starter, my land and sea compost, and we're going to get this moved forward a little bit, so hopefully it'll be, not that it's not happy, but hopefully it'll be a little happier in its new home. All right, so I've got this Chamaecyparis all transplanted in its new home. I put it in a little high because I putting in more topsoil and compost into this bed and then wood chips, so I don't want it to be too low. And obviously this is also at the bottom of a hill, so it gets a lot of water runoff. But I got this bed pretty much raked out of rocks, so we're ready to rototill it one more time, and then we can get topsoil and compost, which is coming on Friday. Yay! I can't wait to be done with these projects.
This is a service berry, and it's getting ready to really pop. The flowers are getting ready to come out. This is a great spring tree. This one is a multi-trunk service berry. You can see right here. And it has really just a lovely flush of flowers in the spring, berries in the fall. Hopefully you can see that. I love this tree. It's just a bright pop in the spring. Let's take a look inside my little hoop house. This is something I got from Gardener's Supply. And I had my fig tree in it all winter because it's just getting too big to, well, here's the fig tree, just too big to keep moving in and out of the garage. So what do I have in here right now? I just potted up my lilies, bunch that I got from B&D Lilies. They have beautiful lilies.
This one is called Editha. This one is called Olympia. Next is Sweetheart. And next is Conquador. And I have some of this outside.
Some tips on potting up lilies. I'm putting mine in pots this year because I'm having a lot of trouble with that red lily beetle. So I'm hoping that maybe if I put them in pots, I won't have the same problem. So if you are looking for some direction on how to pot lilies in a container versus in the ground, Monty Don has some great resources. I like to follow him. He suggests good drainage. They like a little bit more of an acidic soil. And you're going to plant the bulb with about 4 inches of compost potting soil, not regular dirt, on top of the crowns. And just keep them in a nice little shaded area till they start to grow. And then when the buds start developing in May and June, you can put them out wherever you want to have them. Ideally, probably a west or an east facing location. And I've got a bee that's now found its way into that little hoop house. Hope he's pollinating everything. I still have my proven winners, the hydrangeas. I have a bunch of the City Line, Venice, and Mars. Let's see, I also have Let's Dance Blue Jangles in here, Tiny Wine Gold 9 bark, and then I have coneflowers that I dug up from that bed number 1, and some heuchera that I'm just kind of holding over in here. Here's Winecraft Black Cotinus. This is going in one of my new beds, and a proven winner's At Last Rose. So that's what's in hold right now in here. Just because the nights here are still getting pretty cold, but right now it's almost 80 degrees in this little hoop house, and it's not 80 degrees outside here. So one of my projects today is to literally sit down and go through some of these heucheras and get rid of all this old dead growth from last year. And you can see we've got all this new foliage, so I'm going to cut it back to the new foliage. Don't cut the crown though, but cut back all that old foliage from your heucheras.
So here it is all cleaned up and ready for the season. I also cut all the stuff off of the geums. This is Alabama Slammer and the Stokesia Honey Song Purple.
One of my projects today is to get the boxwoods fertilized. I use plant tone from the Spoma. You don't want to use holly tone, even though this is an evergreen. So I'm going to get, this is a Proven Winners sprinter box. Wouldn't I have a bunch of these? So we're going to get these fertilized today. Another project for today is to make sure all the perennials are now cut back. Everything is growing. This is not the time to say any longer, well, let's not cut things back for beneficial insects. Everything is growing, and you need to cut back last year's growth because you can see we have new growth coming up. So everything needs to be, everything needs to be cut back now to make way for all the new growth that's coming up. This is a coneflower, Magnus, I believe. One of the other projects I have for today is I'm going to get my ranunculus in this trough, and then I'm going to cover it with a frost cloth, just a light one, just because our nights are still getting pretty cool. But my ranunculus have quite a bit of roots showing, and they've been now sitting for 2 weeks. So I don't want to let them go too long. So I'm going to get those in the ground today, or in the trough today, and I'll show you when I get to that. The pussy willows, my French pussy willows, are pretty much finished at this point. They're going to start pushing out leaves pretty soon. But boy, this has just been a treat to enjoy these for the last couple months. When the peonies get to be about 6 inches tall, you can fertilize them. I use Neptune's Harvest. It's a nice, easy fertilizer to use. So these are getting ready. This is Coral Charm. This lilac in the front of my house is called Charles Jolly, and it's completely full of buds at this point. So pretty, can't wait for lilacs. I just love purple. And the Nepeta that rings this entire bed will come up, and the whole path on both sides will be lined with Nepeta Walker's Low, catmint. So this is Elsa Spath clematis I have on my arbor. It's a group 2 clematis, so it gets pruned in early spring when the buds just swell, and you can trim it if you need to, just above a bud. Fertilize it while the buds are forming with a handful of lime around the base. So you'll see soon it'll climb up all over this arbor. Another wonderful invention that we got a nice heads up from Laura from Garden Answer is hose links. So we're trying to get them one at a time. So this one has replaced the hoses that we were dragging around for containers and things that just don't get enough water from our irrigation system. Highly recommend them. One of the things that needs cleaning up today, along with a million other things, besides that lady's mantle over here, is the astilbe. These can be divided if you need to, and also fertilized at this time of the year. The same with epimedium, which I would show you, but it's not even up yet. So that can also get fertilized once you see it. Another thing that you can use Hollytone on is, actually there's a pretty long list, and if you go to the Espoma website, there'll be a whole list of what you can use Hollytone on. For me, I have asters and azaleas and bleeding hearts. I have some evergreens. I have some ferns. I have the blue hydrangeas, like the Bloomstruck series. Those can use it, not the panicle hydrangeas. Inkberries, my magnolia, and of course the Pachysandra, which frankly doesn't need any help in my yard because it spreads all over the place. But also things like phlox, raspberries, rhododendrons, strawberries, lupins, leucothoe, some junipers. So there are a lot of things, hollies, that can use Hollytone. Two things that you, like I said before, that you don't want to use Hollytone on are arborvitaes and boxwood, and for those they recommend Plantone. If you're growing any hibiscus, this is one of the summerific series. They're pretty late to break dormancy like May. You think, like everything else is up and you're like, where is it? But these can be cut all the way back to the ground. I have mine cut back to about 6 to 8 inches. At this point, you can cut those back. And then just wait for those beautiful blooms. So let me show you what I have going on here. These are my ranunculus. And you can see there's some pretty nice roots. I was going to put them in the ground tonight, but We're supposed to have a big storm tomorrow night, so I'm kind of concerned about that. But wow, look at those roots. Jeez Louise. So I'm going to leave them in here for another day. I'm sure they'll be fine. So let me show you what I got going on. So even though I know I mentioned that I don't have an indoor setup for seeds, I thought I would try my own kind of method. So I used this little 6-pack that I had from the pansies, and I put Mahogany Splendor Hibiscus in this one, and you can see they're already coming up. I just did this the other day. This is Sweet Pea Balmoral, and those are coming up. No Larkspur that I can see yet. So I've had this kind of in a mini dome thing going with a cloche. I brought the hydrangeas in from my hoop house tonight. Again, we're supposed to have really bad weather tomorrow night, so just to be on the safe side. I've got some cinnamon ferns growing here. What else? I have Veronicastrum growing here. Looking pretty. Nothing happening with my tuberoses yet. Oh, look at here. Wait a minute. We've got more Mahogany Splendor coming up. It looks like all 6 of these, I did them in cow pots, are, yeah, all of them are germinated. I think I need to get the extra water out of there, though, because this is not, there's no drain in this one, because I got those trays for the, to soak the ranunculus corms. So I just thought I would try this. And then I've got, let's see, violas and larkspur. Oh, I see a little viola action. Little bit. Maybe right here. A little bit going on. But I thought I'd try the cow pots. Like I said, I don't really do seeds. So just trying to make my own my own setup to see what might work for me.
Thank you for watching. I'll keep bringing you along through the season and see how things are progressing. Please, any questions you have, I'll be glad to answer them.